Your PowerPoint tricks and hacks are completely ruining presentations for people who use screen readers. But we can fix that. You know how sometimes you want to create an elegant presentation template and make it really easy for your users to be able to change things up on the slide while maintaining that nice design. Sometimes you have to do some jerry-rigging in the back on those master slides. For example, I have a dual color background with an image and then the headline and a subhead. The slide background is actually pink, and then there is this half border white. And you might think that this is a square that's just white in the background, but it's not. It is a cutout shape, but it's not just a shape. This is actually a picture placeholder. Now, why on earth would I do that? It's multi-purpose. When a user's here, they can select this box and then they can fill it with a different color, so I can have a two-tone background. If this were just a rectangle on the master slide, people wouldn't be able to customize the color of it without going to the master slide. You might also notice this gradient right here is also a picture placeholder. Let's go back to that master slide. I have one slide here that has the gradient as a picture placeholder, and I have one slide where it is just a regular old gradient. So what happens to these slides depending on which one of the layouts that I choose? For this one, I have the gradient picture placeholder. And if I move things around and I bring this picture up front, I mean, it looks fine, but what if I need that gradient there? I could reset the slide and the gradient goes back to exactly where it should be. Here I am on a slide that uses the flat gradient, just plain old gradient box. And if I reset the slide, that gradient is never going to come to the top because it's not a placeholder. It's always going to be behind any placeholders. So to get around that, to make it easier for my users building slides and to keep it on brand, I turn the gradient into a picture placeholder. So when I reset, everything is going to stack exactly how I need it to visually. But there are some problems with this. If you mark a placeholder as decorative on the master, it's not going to carry through to the slide itself. Even if I hit reset, this is always going to be unchecked. So you have to be aware of that. This is what it's going to sound like in the editor as we tab through.
Text box placeholder.
Read the placeholder.
Text box placeholder. The final version of Kaz new customer portal on the phone and the desktop. Text box placeholder overlaps top right corner of text box placeholder and is covered by center title placeholder and is covered by subtitle placeholder. Center title placeholder level 1. Create tomorrow. Subtitle placeholder level 1. Building a modern streamlined partner portal to replace multiple obsolete platforms.
Not only is it reading what the object is and what's in it in the alt text, it's also telling you if something is being obscured by another object. We go into slideshow mode. Now, I said that these right now are not marked as decorative. I'm going to leave it that way because I want you to hear what it sounds like in slideshow mode.
Create tomorrow slide. Slide 2. Create tomorrow. The final version of new customer portal on the phone and the desktop image. Heading level 1. Heading level 1. Create tomorrow. Heading level 2. Building a modern streamlined partner portal to replace multiple obsolete platforms.
So what it didn't announce was any of the placeholders. The placeholders were empty, and so JAWS ignored them. And it didn't tell us what is obscured by what. What it did do is read the image alt text first before the title and subtitle. And here's another gotcha when you're working on these slides. When you have slides laid out like this, where you have an image and then on top of that you have some text.
To select an object, press tab.
Oh, JAWS, be quiet for a second.
List box, JAWS.
Anyway, where was I? Here we go. We've got this picture placeholder 6 on here. It's doesn't have a description and it's not marked as decorative. So that's going to show up as an error in your slide, even though it's just there to add color. So I would go ahead and mark it as decorative, even though in JAWS it doesn't matter. It's telling me to check the reading order on slide 1 because the title is not being read first. However, in this design, if I want the title and subtitle to be read first, they're going to have to go underneath the image because in the selection pane, from bottom up is how it is read, so it would be title, subtitle, image, which means that the image is on top of the text and hiding it visually. So there is an issue. You might get the check reading order for this kind of thing. You'll have to document why that is coming up. And you'll also have to settle for alt text being read first. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Steph, why don't I just make the background image of the slide like in that image instead of having this weird setup you have going? You could do that. I mean, you could have the image as the background fill. If you did that and you still wanted this two-tone border here, you would then have to have two of these placeholders. One of these would be flipped on the other side. So you have to keep all of that in mind when you're building these slides. There's another gotcha with that. Can you put alt text on a slide background image? No, you can't. So there's that. So if you need somebody to know what the image is, don't make it your slide background. It's a lot to consider. Another thing we need to be cognizant of is our slide animations. The presenter is going seamlessly through slide after slide while the animation is playing in the background, speaking to the story, and then they land on the last slide of that animation sequence. And that last slide of the animation sequence is what has all of the pertinent information. But if we do that and somebody is watching this with the screen readers, I want to go through a short, simple example for you. It has 3 slides. I go from here with the first bullet and then the second bullet and the third bullet, and the image changes shape and location across each slide. No, I would not actually design like this. It's just an example. Okay, let's hear what these 3 slides sound like when JAWS announces everything.
Cheesa box slide. Slide 3 Cheesa box. Heading level 1 Cheesa box. Bullet body text of the slide. A computer on the desk image. Slide 4 Cheesa box. Heading level 1 Cheesa box. Bullet body text of the slide. Bullet second slide in a set of animated slides. A computer on the desk image. Slide 5 Cheesa box. Heading level 1 Cheesa box. Bullet body text of the slide. Bullet second slide in a set of animated slides. Bullet 3 bullet third slide in animated slides. A computer on the desk image.
So you hear cheese box a lot. And then you hear the first bullet 3 times, the second bullet twice, and the alt text for that image, you hear it 3 times, which is overwhelming and unnecessary, and we can do better. So what do? Every slide except for the last slide, what we have here is this text box down here, and you cannot read it. Let me change the color really quickly, and we'll bring it up. And all it is just a text box with the sentence, "This is part of an animated slide series. Select this link to go to the screen reader friendly slides." And it's a link to the last slide in the animation series. I have it set for the text color to match the background, so it's hidden. What would be really cool and is not yet an option is that if we could fill the text with the background like we can for shapes. So you can fill the shape with a slide background, but we can't fill text. If we could fill text, that'd be easy, because if this were over a gradient or something, it'd be really complicated to hide this text, because if we pull it off the slide, it won't be read. And if we do an appear disappear animation, it will be gone, JAWS won't see it, and it will not be read. What happens is now we have this hidden visually link for screen readers to hear. Now, it would be also nice if we didn't have to hear all of these at all before we go to the last slide, which is where they will all be read again. In that case, I'm going to select everything on the slide except that link to the end and mark them as decorative. In the reading order pane, if I uncheck them, that is essentially marking them as decorative. Now, caution here. If you do that, let me go back to this image. Once you mark it as decorative in the reading order pane, it wipes out any alt text that may or may not have been there. So just be wary of that. We have these 3 marked as decorative. I'm going to do the same thing on the second slide. All right, so how do people who use screen readers then get to this?
Slide 3 Cheesa box. Link. This is part of an animated slide series. Select this link to go to the screen reader friendly slide.
It only read the link that I have there that is hidden from eyes. How do they get to it? There is a shortcut in JAWS. It's V for visited link, U for an unvisited link.
Wrapping the top. This is part of an animated slide series.
U
Select
is
this
now
link to go to the screen reader
link.
friendly slide.
I hit enter and I go straight to the last slide where...
Slide 5 Cheesa box. Heading level 1 Cheesa box.
Okay, now everything's read in the right order. I only hear it the minimum amount of times so that all of the information goes to our screen reader users, and our sighted users can still see the amazing animation that's happening. That's how it sounds in JAWS. There are other screen readers. You might be tempted to use Microsoft Narrator. It is a screen reader built into Windows and has been around since 2000. but it is absolutely useless. Let me demonstrate to you what this slideshow sounds like in Microsoft Narrator.
Slide pane, slide 2 Great America's Great Tomorrow, slide.
Okay, it only reads the title. It doesn't read the other text on the slide. It doesn't read the alt text of that image. There you go. Windows has Narrator, don't use it. NVDA and JAWS are great, NVDA is free. Those two are only for Windows only. Now, Mac users, you've got VoiceOver, and it's not bad, actually. One more caveat for you. I have on this slide, as I said, the title and content and this image all marked as decorative. So they were not announced by JAWS when I pulled it up in slideshow mode. These are all placeholders. However, if I use just a plain old text box on a slide, if I don't want that text in the text box to be read, you would think, okay, then I will mark it as decorative as well. So there you go. Nothing on this slide should be read when I'm in slideshow mode. Let's hear what we hear.
Ready. JAWS. PowerPoint slideshow reading order and screen readers. PowerPoint. Shisabox slide. Slide 3 Shisabox. Link. This is part of an animated slide series. Select this link to go to the screen reader friendly slide.
The text in the text box is marked as decorative, but JAWS is still reading it. So if you want to mark text as decorative, it has to be in a placeholder. It cannot be in a regular text box. So those are the few things that can ruin the experience of your presentation for screen reader users. Also, subscribe if you want to get more videos about this. I try to post once a week.